Well, hi friends, my name is Brian Cosby. This is Provide and Protect, and today I want to share with you how to raise boys to be men. You know, in our culture today, there seems to be so much confusion over what it means to be a boy or a man, confusion over gender, and there really shouldn't be because our culture is just starved for true and faithful men and fathers and husbands and really providers and protectors in our society. And so what I'm going to do today is share with you a part 2 of a 3-part series on 150 skills that every boy should learn to be a man. So let's get into it. So in part 1 of this series, we looked at the first 50 of the 150 skills, and so today we're starting at number 51, and that is archery. So teaching your boys basic archery, the parts of an arrow, whether that is for a traditional or a compound or a crossbow. So basic archery is one thing that we need to teach our boys. So number 52 is proper gun safety and respect. You know, unfortunately, so often a child will find a firearm that's not properly locked up or in a safe or something like that. And this is a real problem. And so boys need to understand the respect and the danger of a firearm and what that could do to somebody. So the safety elements to it and making sure your muzzle is not pointing at anyone, not flagging anyone. They need to understand these safety protocols and really the respect for those firearms. So speaking of firearms, number 53 is how to properly shoot a gun, whether that is a handgun or a rifle, obviously with all of the safety protocols that we talked about, but knowing how to actually line up your sights and shoot a gun safely and on target and effectively. I remember as a kid, my dad would take me to the shooting range and I would learn all those fundamentals and techniques of shooting. And just doing that gave me the respect for the gun. But I think every boy should learn how to shoot a gun. So number 54 is proper gun cleaning and maintenance. So how to take apart a rifle or a handgun, how to clean it, how to lubricate it so it is ready to go when they go shooting again. So number 55 is fishing. Knowing how to properly bait a worm or a cricket, knowing what kind of lures to use, knowing the kinds of fish that are out there, whether it's catfish or trout or bass or some kind of panfish. And then also, here's a bonus, how to properly clean a fish. But that's something certainly I think every boy needs to learn how to do. Hey, before we get to number 55, if you don't know how to do some of these skills, that's okay. You can learn them on your own, whether that's reading a book or watching videos, but maybe better is just to learn them with your sons or with your boys. With that, let's get back to the list. So number 56 is hiking. It's taking them on hikes. It's showing them how to read a trail, how to read the signs, how to read those colored markers that are on the trees alongside the trail. So number 56 is hiking. So number 57 is camping. And certainly this is a bigger topic overall, but basically knowing how to set up a tent and rolling out your sleeping pad, your sleeping bag, starting a fire, having a stove. But I think every boy needs to know how to camp. So number 58 is swimming. I think every boy should learn how to swim, some basic strokes, not only for recreation and fun purposes, of course, but also for safety. And whether they fall in the water, if they need to rescue somebody else, I think every boy needs to learn how to swim. Number 59 is canoeing and kayaking. So knowing how to canoe, and if you have a paddle, whether you're in the front of a canoe or the back of the canoe, they have different purposes. So the front of the canoe is going to be more for the power and going forward or going backward, like straight. The person in the back is more for the turning and steering of the canoe, or a kayak as well. I grew up kayaking and canoeing, and this is something that's just always been helpful and useful to know. I do think that every boy needs to learn some basic fundamentals of canoeing or kayaking. So number 60 is caving, and caving can actually be pretty dangerous. I've gotten lost in a few caves before. There's a lot of things that we need to learn and teach our boys about caving and the dangers of caving, but also the fun and thrill of caving and how to rappel using a rope, how to find your way back out, whether you're using candles or some other means to find your way back out, having extra batteries, all the various things related to caving. But it is a fun adventure to go underground or through a mountain or something like that and to explore. It's just part of being a boy and being a man. Number 61 is rock climbing. So knowing not only the differences between dynamic, static ropes, being able to boulder, knowing the kinds of rock climbing shoes to have, a figure 8, how to put on a harness, those kinds of things. A lot of that you can learn at a local gym, like a rock climbing gym. This is an area that's just fun to do, but important skill to have. Number 62 is whittling. So taking a piece of wood and knowing the different kinds of wood that work best for whittling and making something out of it and using that for Christmas or birthday gifts, I think it's a fun thing and a useful thing to know for any boy or man. Number 63 is knowing your trees and your plants, knowing the difference by the leaf or the bark between an oak or a pine or a hickory tree, the uses for those trees, and also plants, especially dangerous plants like poison ivy, and being able to recognize those plants, and even the medicinal types of plants. Those are all good to know. Number 64 is building a shelter, whether you have a tarp or you don't have a tarp and you need to use natural resources, how to build a shelter out in the woods. I think that's something that every boy or man needs to know how to do. So number 65 is purifying water. So you need to have good drinking water, and whether you have tablets or an actual water purifier or boiling it, knowing what kind of water you should probably stay away from and what kind of water, the flowing water in the streams, might be good to use for purifying. But knowing how to get safe, drinkable water is a basic skill I think any boy or man needs to know how to do. Number 66 is knowing the kinds of birds that are out there, whether it is a crow or a robin or an eagle or a falcon or some other kind of bird, knowing the threats they could be. If it's an owl, I mean, we have chickens around our house, so we pay attention to some predator type birds around here, but they're also fun to watch. They're pretty amazing to watch. Being amazed at the various designs of all the kinds of birds that are out there. It's just an amazing skill and a wonderful thing to learn and do with your family and your boys. Number 67 is animal tracks. So knowing the difference between a deer and a raccoon or a bobcat or something else, especially the animals that live near you, to learn those kinds of tracks so you can see, hey, what kinds of animals are around here. Number 68 is hunting. And of course, this is a controversial topic, I know, but I still think there's something very basic about being able to go out into the woods and gather food for your family. Also, there's an important element in having a respect for the animal. You don't want to treat an animal in a cruel, unusual kind of way that's just mean-spirited. You want to have respect that they're providing food for you and your family, and that's an important thing to learn and to teach your boys. And speaking of hunting, it's also important to learn how to process or clean an animal, whether it's a deer, a chicken, a turkey, a boar, something else. You need to learn how to actually process it and butcher it and have the portions for your meat. So if you're out in the woods and you kill a deer, how to field dress that deer, and then also be able to take it back and to process it, butcher it up to its respective portions to be able to use. And I think it's a good thing to teach my boys as well. Number 70 are learning the types of rocks, whether it's granite or limestone or sandstone, the purposes and uses for one stone over another. Knowing the various kinds of rocks and stones, I think is a basic skill that we all need to know. And speaking of stones, skipping a stone, number 71. This is just a fun thing. Can I throw a fun thing in here? Actually, there's several of them in this list. But skipping a stone, I was with my family camping and we were by a lake and going down the lake and showing my children the types of rocks that are best for skipping and seeing how many times it would actually skip across the water. It's a fun thing to do with them, and I think a neat skill for them to have, and something they can pass on to their boys one day. Number 72 is wading a creek, getting across a creek or a stream safely without slipping on the rocks underneath, and understanding the flow and the power of water can be very powerful, and if you get too deep and that water could sweep you away. So you got to be very careful with wading a creek, especially if there's high water, it's been raining a lot or something like that. So wading a creek properly, number 72. Number 73 is something fun, catching crawdads. At least that's what we call them down here in Tennessee. In Georgia, North Georgia is crawdads, crayfish. Basically going out and lifting up rocks and catching them, getting pinched. That's all part of the fun of it. And of course you can get enough of them and eat them too. You can boil them and eat them too. But yeah, so catching crawdads. Carrying on the water theme, number 74 is reading a river. So if you were on a river, whether it is a raft that you've made or just a normal raft or a kayak or canoe, and be able to read the river as you're going down. You can see the water going over a rock and the eddy beyond it, and the danger of rocks poking up or trees maybe overhanging the river. Be able to read the river and navigating a river down is something I think an important skill. This may be something you need to learn yourself and know how to do, and maybe watch a couple videos on this. Number 75 is horseback riding. Now, I don't do a lot of horseback riding, but I do like horses, and I think it's good for boys to learn how to get up on a horse, how to ride a horse. So yeah, number 75 is horseback riding. So number 76 is building a snowman. I think there's something just fun with friends, with family, and building a snowman. There is some technique to it as well, and the type of snow and the packing and all that. And I think it's something that any boy or man just needs to know how to do. So number 77 is weather patterns. So looking at a radar and tracking the radar to where you are and seeing the kind of storm and looking at the clouds during the day, and is that a cumulus cloud, and knowing the kinds of clouds that are out there. And I remember a long time ago seeing this movie called Twister, and there's a moment where it's like talking about greenage and is there a danger here? The danger of hail, strong wind, watching hurricanes come up maybe through the Gulf or along the east coast of the US or something like that. So watching weather patterns and systems, I think, is something that's important for any man or boy to know how to do. Number 78 is finding direction based on the sun. So if you are outside and you're trying to figure out what direction I'm going in, or even telling time with the sun, maybe on this as well, and setting pegs in the ground and finding that direction, or taking a needle and magnetizing it and finding true north, that kind of thing. Those are all kinds of skills to know out in the wilderness, your survival. Number 79, when you're outside at night and you're looking up at the stars and you're seeing the constellations. So learning the constellations, whether it's Orion or the Big Dipper, Little Dipper, being able to see that and just wonder and be amazed at this creation that we are a part of. Number 80, topography, maps, and a compass. So knowing how to find direction and north, south, east, west, looking at a topo map and seeing the elevation changes on a topo map, finding your direction. So if you get lost, you know where to go. Knowing these things, and a compass is just an amazing little piece of equipment to have. Number 81 is forestry and land management. Sometimes you need to do something like a controlled burn to not only protect your home, but also to increase the vegetation of the larger trees to make them more healthy, so there's not as much competition, taking out the underbrush, that kind of thing, maybe pine needles, the danger with all of that. Watching the various maybe bugs and pests that could really wipe out whole forests. That's happened with a lot of pine trees in our area, so learning the signs of those as well. Those are all good things to know as a boy and as a man. Number 82 is something that I'm surprised it's on my list, but it's storytelling. And my father-in-law would be so happy this is on my list. The more I thought about storytelling, it's not only important for entertainment, it's important for motivation and inspiration and encouragement and informing people on how to do something, but not in a direct way. Number 83 is something that often goes along with storytelling, and that's making s'mores. So how to make a good s'more, and taking a marshmallow, roasting it properly so it doesn't get burned up. It's nice and crispy on the outside and gooey in the middle. Good s'more, good thing to know. Number 84, snakes. A boy, a man, really anyone, needs to understand the difference between a venomous and a non-venomous snake. In our area down in Tennessee, we have mainly copperhead and timber rattlers that are venomous snakes down here. And then we got a ton of great snakes that I love having around down here as well. For any boy or man, they need to understand the difference between them. If you're going on a hike, if you're walking through the woods, if you're going to the chicken coop, out of your garage, we've seen snakes in all those places around here. Knowing the difference is important. Number 85, spiders. So around here, we have black widows and brown recluse spiders that are not good to have around. But then there's other good spiders around. And because, there's a lot of birds and other animals that eat spiders. And so it's part of the overall natural habitat. But you got to be careful. You reach your hand into a hole, or you open up your barn one morning and on the lock there's a black widow. So you got to be very careful. And I think it's good for a boy or a man to be able to recognize those. Number 86 is dealing with rats or mice or pests like that. So whether you get a barn cat, you know how to set some mice or rat traps around, but basically taking care of that, because mice and rats can cause horrible damage. So I think any boy or man needs to know how to take care of mice and rats. Number 87 is felling a tree. So notching out a tree in the proper way so that it falls where you want it to fall, and not on a person or a house or a piece of property that you own. It's a good skill to have, knowing how to fell a tree. Number 88 is using a saw, not just for trees, but for furniture, for everyday carpentry. Using a saw and the difference in pushing and pulling, the types of teeth that are on a saw and the purposes for them, in building something, cutting things down, crafting things, just making things. Using a saw is just so important. 89 is sports. So just knowing the basics of soccer and football and running and swimming, track. These are good things to know for any boy. So when they're out, they grow up and they're out of your house and they're somewhere, and someone talks about the World Series, and your son is not like, what is that? Never heard of it. So these are all good things for any boy to learn. So we're coming down the home stretch now. Number 90, riding a bike. Not only is it fun, it can be very useful. We have family and friends that live near us to ride their bike next door or down the road. Something I used to do all the time. I feel like so many boys today just don't get outside. They don't ride their bikes. It's just all on video games or something. And you're going to notice that video games is not one of these 150 skills on my list, at least. Knowing the components of a bicycle, being able to work on a bicycle, changing a tire, all those things, adjusting shocks on a bicycle. Those are all good things to know. Number 91 is fireworks. How to safely use fireworks, and what kinds of fireworks are most popular, and why, and on what occasion you might buy fireworks. Number 92 is world history and biography. So learning not only story, but true story from the past and how we got to where we are today. And knowing your history is good so you don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Knowing your history is good because it gives you who you are as an identity, and you can learn a lot from other people in the past. Number 93 is an appreciation for good music. And I say good music, and to learn an instrument and be able to play an instrument. There's piano or guitar, learning how to play a violin or a cello, a flute, an organ, a bass, something. Number 95 is an appreciation for good art. So not the kind of art that I just throw some paint on a wall and people call it art. I don't know. I don't understand that kind of art, but just the historic classic art, and not only appreciate that kind of art, but also to be able to learn how to do some basic drawing and sketching. It's a helpful skill to have. Number 96 is writing well. This is a lost art today, is learning how to write well. And knowing the various parts of a sentence, putting them together in paragraphs, having a flow of thought to make an argument. Most people, you can learn the specifics of any job, but the communication is not only in the articulation and speaking, but also in the writing. And you do emails, texts, you do a lot of writing and in your life. And I think this is just a basic skill for any boy or man needs to know how to do. So number 97 is speech, debate, and logic. So there's all kinds of speech and debate classes out there. I think it's good for boys to learn how to speak, how to communicate, not only individually, one-on-one, but also if you are on a stage, if you are in front of a lot of people, how to communicate in a way that you are reading the audience and making sure that what you're saying is connecting with them. You're communicating to them because you're trying to persuade them. You're trying to move them. You're trying to inform them, or whatever purpose you have for communicating. But speech, debate, knowing how to debate, understanding the rules of logic, syllogisms, all those kinds of things, so that you can unpack the assumptions in the other person and really win them over to whatever kind of point of view that you have. I think it's an important skill to have. Number 98 is learning another language. I think it's good for every boy or man to learn some kind of, at least a portion of another language. And I think it not only helps you understand your own language. In fact, one point I was learning Greek and Hebrew, and learning Greek and Hebrew actually helped me understand English better. So I think there's a lot of benefits to this, and I think it's an important skill to have. Number 99 is clothing, knowing how to properly dress for different occasions. And whether you're going to the ball game, you're going to church, or you're going to meet someone very important, knowing how to dress that is respectful, matching, maybe your watch and your belt, your shoes, tucking your shirt in, those kinds of basic things that a boy or a man needs to know is just so important. And those occasions, if I go to meet someone who's very well known, respectful, I'm not going to dress like a slob going to meet them because I value them, I respect them, and I think a boy needs to know how to do that as well. The last one, number 100, is knowing how to patch your clothes. So for a lot of boys, we buy them a nice pair of pants, some khakis or something, and within a couple of weeks there's holes in the knees. That's just normal, I get it, but also know, can you patch those clothes? Do you know how to? Maybe it's cheaper just to buy another pair, but I think it's still a good skill to have, to be able to take out some basic needle and thread and be able to just to put a patch over a knee or an elbow or something like that on a piece of clothing. Just a basic skill to have. Hey, don't forget to check out part 1 of this series and stay tuned for part 3. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. If you've not already done so, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate you and your support, and we'll see you on the next video.